Et bonjour YouTube, j'espère que vous allez bien dans la forme. Présente de vous retrouver pour une toute nouvelle conférence sur le Black Voice in Gaming, focus sur les studios Black, donc gérés par des gens noirs, je suppose. Enfin, c'est comme ça que c'est décrit en tout cas. Avec rond.
Ok.
Comment ça va?
Ça va.
C'est parti dans moins de 10 secondes maintenant pour ce Black Voice in Gaming. Ça va ressembler un petit peu au Mix Summer. Ça va pas marcher. Hop les.
What is happening, my people? My name is Justin Woodward, co-founder of Black Voice and Gaming.
Et c'est encore un mix derrière, donc c'est pour ça que ça va ressembler au Mix Summer Showcase d'hier, forcément. Faut pas juste mon petit carnet, j'ai pas pris. Je suis même pas préparé, on est un peu.
Black Voice and Gaming Summer Showcase for 2026. Our mission is simple. We help support and celebrate developers through grants, network connections, publishers, investors, platforms, and of course, the community of you guys and the culture. This BVIG, we are proud to showcase trailers, interviews, and gameplay sessions with some dope developers. Before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors, Raw Fury,
c'est la voix des jeux noirs.
The Mix, and our broadcasting partners, Summer Game Fest. Thank you guys for supporting us. IGN, Twitch, GameSpot, and Steam.
La voix noire dans le
Steam.
gaming.
Please wish list or purchase the games you see in the show through the QR code that pops up. We are coming up on our third year with the XP Fund, where we help fund grants through an accelerator program that will get these games made. If you're interested in supporting these games through charity,
voilà ce qu'on a l'habitude pour le début, hein, le blabla habituel.
Pops up, and if you're interested in investment opportunities, please hit us up as well.
Les sponsors, si vous voulez donner.
Without further delay, I'm going to pass the mic to Lori and Curtis Baxter to get into the first.
C'est vrai, ils ont pas de cette année, ils ont pas de présentateur.
Ah si. My name is Curtis, and I am joined by my incredible host, a fantastic content creator by the name of...
J'ai parlé trop vite.
Hi, my name is Lori, and I'm so excited to be here today with you, Curtis, for all of the trailers, all of the announcements.
I know, I think it's going to be jam-packed, so I don't know about you, but I want to get right into it. You down with that?
Yes, let's do it.
All right.
Hey, my name is Graham.
Premier jeu
I'm a Jamaican
de la
game developer,
soirée.
and this is my cozy island builder, Our Lands. It's a game focused on creativity. No pressure, no rules to follow, just pure vibes. It's up to you to create whatever kind of island you want to make, whether it's a lush forest campsite or a vast deserted island. Our Lands has dozens of things for you to decorate your islands with, and once you take a break from building, even more things are waiting to be found. Just poke around. There are a ton of delightful surprises for you to experience. Now, once you think you're done, show off your hard work by making postcards and sharing them with your friends, because good things should always be shared. Day or night, rain or shine, come and craft your little slice of paradise right here in Our Lands.
Our Lands. Disponible maintenant.
Moi, le stream apprend, t'es chelou.
A princess, once beautiful beyond wonders of the flesh, now crawled the earth as her demonic mass pulsated lifelessly.
The Vampire Princess. Delphine non russe. Ok, Bathory en 2027 sur Steam et Switch. Ça remarche?
Ouais. Je vais reload la page.
Oh, oh la voix. Horrible.
Je sais pas ça.
Oh. Starter. Ouais, il était au début du dev. Hein.
Beaucoup de Pokémon-like cette année.
Hi
Ouais,
everyone,
un peu.
I'm Thiago Prudente from
Un peu
Magic
trop à mon
Games.
goût.
We are indie game developers from
Oui, parce que c'est pas
Salvador,
vraiment des
Bahia,
Pokémon-like,
Northeast Brazil. And I'm
si
the
tu vois ce que je veux
developer
dire.
of Black
Ouais, ouais.
Sails, Bay of All Saints. I'm here to tell
Ouais,
you a
je
bit
le
about
tromperai
the
pas.
game we're building and why this story matters so much to us. Black Sailor is an adventure RPG with tactical turn-based combat. It's a story during the colonization
la
of
copie
Brazil
carbone.
back in the 19th century, about a group of enslaved Africans who refused to accept their fate. So they rebelled, seized control of a slave ship, and became pirates, fighting back against the Portuguese colonial oppression in the Bay of All Saints. It's a decolonial game. That means we are shifting the lenses here. We are so used to seeing history and games told from the perspective of the conqueror or the explorer, but in Black Sailors we flip that logic. We take the power out of the hands of the colonizer and put it in the hands of the enslaved and oppressed. One of the things that drive us is how history is taught. Even in Brazil, our education is often very Eurocentric. We were taught at school that our country was formed by Portuguese, indigenous people, and Africans, as if African was just one big homogeneous block, but that was not the case. The African diaspora was formed by several different ethnicities: Yoruba, Bantu, Fon, and many others. Each had their own unique culture, cosmology, and customs. Some were even rival back in Africa, but they were forced into the same struggle here. The colonizers actually thought mixing different ethnicities would prevent revolt. It's important to understand that Black Sailors is built entirely from an Afro-Brazilian perspective. Our culture is incredibly rich and rooted in African ancestry. But over centuries, we lost the clear lines of what came from each ethnicity. In Black Sailors, we are creating an alternative story, exploring what it would look like if this Afro-Brazilian identity was forged in the fire of a pirate rebellion. We didn't want to just make generic African rebel characters. That's why we are collaborating with a historian, a specialist in African diaspora in colonial Bahia. We have researched these specific ethnicities to create characters with real, distinct motivations. So in the crew, you will not just find generic Africans. There is a Daomé warrior, a blacksmith from Oyo, a hunter from Ife. You also find people with very different motivations. Some of them just want to go back to Africa. Others want to build a full-scale rebellion and dominate the Bay. And some have lost everything and are driven just by revenge. These clashing motivations create a dynamic conflict between them that evolve as you play. When the game begins, they have just taken control of the ship. They don't know each other yet, but they quickly realize they will have to overcome their differences if they want to survive. Your role as the player is to manage this crew and assign them to specific functions on the ship. So, if you want the ship to move faster, you need to put more people on the sails. If you want the ship to shoot back, you need to put more people on the guns. This is how you plan your evolution. It's a turn-based strategy experience divided into two phases. First, the planning phase, where you manage your crew, analyze enemy movements, track enemy bullets, and decide your strategy. Then comes the resolution phase, where you watch your decisions play out in real time. As your adventure continues, you upgrade your ship and crew and rescue more people who join your cause. We just announced Black Sailors to the world, and the reaction was intense. We saw a lot of backlash from people who treated the simple act of portraying enslaved people with agency as some kind of agenda, but the support has been even louder. We realized that there is a massive audience of players who are hungry for stories that step outside the Eurocentric power fantasy. Black Sailors is for everyone who wants to see history through a different lenses, a lens of resistance, humanity, and freedom. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait for you all to sail the Bay of All Saints with us.
C'est en 2027 en plus.
Ah, cool. Dis quand il doit tabasser sur Steam Deck pour qu'il fonctionne.
Ouais, pas de date. Non.
All right. Well, that was an incredible trailer for Netcode Warriors. I am joined by my co-host, Derek Fields, and right now we also happen to have the CEO and game director of Sun Studios, Segun Oshede. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. Doing well. No, happy to be checking out this game. So, I mean, right off the bat, these are totally new characters, right? Totally new IP. Can you kind of walk us through the entire development process?
Yeah. So we've been working on Netcode Warriors since 2020. So it's been a hot minute. The kind of earliest days were a lot of ideation kind of phase. Like, what does this IP mean? Like, what is it about? Like, kind of figuring out some of the story and lore aspects and kind of honing in like how we were going to reference our inspirations and things like that. Once we were able to kind of communicate with Watanabe-san and Moriyama-san, so those are the guys from Japan who actually worked on the Digimon IP. Kenji is like one of the original kind of creators and designers of the Digimon IP. Once we were able to kind of talk with those guys and get more of a hone in on the art style, I think that kind of like we were off to the races at that point. We also had other very talented designers. Ivan Fiorelli, famously, I think has done like some stuff for Fantastic Four comic. I think he was the penciler for Fantastic Four for a couple of years. Mitch Lucas has a pretty famous webtoon that's in development called Project Divider. So a lot of very talented artists kind of help shape the artistic vision of the game. My inspirations for art generally are always going to be based on my background. So I'm Nigerian. So for instance, the main character is Yoruba. I'm Yoruba, so the Yoruba tribe. That was important to me, but also bringing in some of the things from my childhood that really stood out to me artistically and stylistically. So very Shibuya punk and grind fiction inspired. You have a lot of like kind of streetwear and street culture kind of aspects that are kind of baked into some of the art and the especially the human characters, but then the transformations into these like larger than life like warriors. We call them code warriors. It's very Sentai inspired, very Power Rangers inspired. So those are like bring in a lot of like aspects of things I grew up with, like Mega Man Battle Network and you know, other franchises like that that really shaped the vision of like the IP and everything like that. But
yeah, rock on. I mean, it's easy to see for me coming from like a similar background in terms of influences and the types of media that I was growing up with. Those influences, like they breathe all throughout Netcode Warriors. There's something that you nudged on that I would love to hear more about. One of my favorite topics is talking about cultural intersection and how these different inspirations can come together to breathe new life. You're directly interfacing with Japanese developers and artists within this project, and so can you expand a little bit more about what it's like to work, truly as a globalized studio?
Yeah, so
J'ai rien suivi.
the whole studio is remote. I've always said, like, I don't really care where you come from. I just care that you got
j'ai rien suivi, c'est ce qu'il a dit.
right? That's it. I don't even care too much like how much experience you have, because I think it's very easy to fall into that trap when you're hiring somebody of that whole thing like, oh well, I need experience to get a job. How can I get a job if I don't have experience, right? So for me, it's just if I see passionate people, talented people, I tend to reach out to those and try to see if there's like a way we can collaborate in certain aspects, in certain avenues. In regards to the globalization of everything, yeah, like people from all over the world, from Spain, from Indonesia, animation team, the riggers, animators from Brazil, and so like your team is kind of worldwide. Kind of by necessity, like just because we want the best people that we can bring onto the project. In regards to working with the Japanese guys specifically, definitely language barrier was kind of hard to overcome. You're like translating emails back and forth, trying to make sure that you're not saying anything that they can be perceived as like offensive and incorrect. Like you want to make sure you're culturally sensitive to whoever you're speaking to and kind of the background, especially some of these guys who are very well known in the industry for the kind of work they've done. So yeah, it was very important for us to always approach those conversations with respect and make sure that the people who we're talking with, that they're creatively and artistically being fulfilled by the work we're asking them to do. Yeah, I'd say that's kind of our general approach to how we do stuff.
So, I mean, in game development, we all know it's not easy, especially when you're running a team, and especially when you have a globalized team, like you do. Can you speak to a little bit of the challenges that kind of come up and kind of how you kind of triumph over them?
Yeah, I'd
C'est qui lui
be
déjà?
lying if I said I've got this part down 100%. I'm still growing, learning every day. Part of it is just trying to be as flexible as you can with time zones. Time zones can be a big thing, right? Sometimes I just don't get a lot of sleep, because I'm like talking with people in Spain who are 4 hours ahead, or Japan who are 12, 14 hours ahead or whatever, right? So like sometimes it's me being up at 3 a.m. but needing to be up at 8 a.m. to do something, right? So that the reality is like sometimes it's a grind. It's really hard. It's difficult. It's mentally taxing. I'm sure my girlfriend would love to see me more. But at times, life demands that to achieve greatness, you must do great things, right? So yeah, that's I hold myself to a very high standard in regards to how I do work and how I operate and everything like that. And I can't expect everybody to put in 100% if I'm not putting in 100%, right? 110%, whatever I have to give, I give. Because these projects that we're working on as a studio, they're very important to me. I'm very passionate about them. To me, Sun Studios is poised to be like one of the next premier like fighting game developers, at least based out of the West, right? If we do things correctly, and if we make sure that we're precise and very calculated with how we do things, and that we put our heart into it. So that's kind of my approach to that.
As a fighting game, this means that we're entering into the fighting game community and entering into a nuance for things like iframes and move cancellations and like hitbox coordination. Yeah. I am arbitrarily gesturing at this as just a fighting game couch player. Dead or Alive was my game of choice, and I'm no longer good at any of them. But they bring such a nuance. And so what sort of nuance, emergent outcomes do you hope comes from Netcode Warriors and in terms of how people play and engage with this game?
Yeah. So Netcode Warriors, right? Obviously, there's the stylistic kind of things that we're referencing, but in regards to the gameplay itself, I
Il
think
en a
that's
des choses
actually
à
where
dire
it
sur ce
shines,
jeu
where it's
de
special,
mecha.
its specialness comes from, because we're making
Ah,
an
il
arena
parle d'un
fighter.
jeu?
Ouais,
Which,
il parle de
there's a
Mecha
lot of them
Warrior.
out there, usually based on
D'accord.
licensed IP,
C'est pas, j'ai
like
compris un
your famous
truc.
anime or whatever. But those games are usually designed for a more casual experience. They're not really designed
Le mec d'avant disait que son jeu préféré c'était
deep.
Dead or Alive.
It's more about getting to
Ok.
experience your favorite characters and play them in a way
Pas le mot honnête,
that's
je vous
easy
j'ai
for
rien
you to
écouté.
do and for you easy for you to
Oui, non,
switch
mais
from
en même
character
temps,
to
c'est long, hein.
character
Je sais
and
même
just
pourquoi
do
l'interview
really
aussi.
cool stuff and kind of put it down, like I had a good time or whatever. And that's not really the design goal here. The design goal here is for
Il
you
y
to
aurait
put
des images du jeu ou quoi,
hundreds, thousands of
je sais
hours
pas,
into it. Like the
enfin pourquoi
game
pas, mais
is like constantly revealing itself to you. And in that kind of design space, arena fighters haven't really had competitive spotlight before. I mean, there's one or two here or there, but they all kind of make compromises to kind of have that conversation with the fighting game community, I would say. And we're kind of looking at things in a sort of a different direction. Obviously, we're trying to incorporate some things like motion inputs are
Enchanté,
pretty big
yes,
for us,
c'est Gun aussi.
quarter circles and things like that should just exist more usually in traditional fighting games that tend to not exist in arena fighters. We're putting those in, charge motions, and other things like that. But the idea of what an arena fighter is or what it can be is a real expression of freedom of movement in a three-dimensional space that 2D fighters just generally aren't really can't do in the same way, I'd say. And so even the 3D fighters that you're familiar with, like Dead or Alive or Tekken or Virtual Fighter, because jumping usually and crouching share an input, jumping, crouching, and then stepping to the side share an input that limits how quickly you can move in and out of the foreground. And it's mostly about moving forward and backwards quickly with intervals of that. That's why there's high level techniques about stepping into out of the foreground. Netcode Warrior kind of approaches it more like there's a real freedom of movement, and the skill and depth is how the decisions you're making based on that movement. You can move wherever you want, but are you moving in the right place at the right time? You can move quickly, but are you quickly adjusting to what your opponent is doing and things like that? So that's kind of the design space that we're in regards to what Netcode Warriors is and what it can be.
I love that. We spoke a little bit earlier just about this being, again, a new IP that no one's seen before. Let's say we're fast forward, game is out, it's doing amazing, as I'm sure it will. Fandoms love to interact with their favorite characters. Do the Sun Studios have any kind of aspirations to take those characters and develop them for other forms of media? And what does that success look like for you?
Yeah, this is something I've thought about loosely. I haven't put too much thought into it, to be honest. But from what I've thought about, I do think a companion manga makes a lot of sense. Like a one-shot manga, I think would be really, really succinct with the art style and the inspirations and everything like that. Would make a ton of sense. I think animation, like a short film, could also do wonders. I think also there's various opportunities because the designs are so wild and so dynamic, and there's obviously licensing opportunities, clothing, merchandise could be cool. The human characters have these very tech wear kind of inspired outfits, so something that kind of leads into that I think could be interesting as well. But yeah, mostly manga, animation, novelization. I mean, those are all valid avenues that one could pursue, or one that we thought about to some degree, but haven't put too much thought into because we're just really focused on making a good game with a good story first. Something I want to make sure is that I don't want people to feel I didn't get this, I have to go do homework elsewhere to understand the game I just played, or the story mode I just played, or to understand the characters that I was interacting with. If that makes sense. We want a full story experience, right? In Netcode Warriors. So
really quick before I let you get up in, Derek, I want to know. All right, are you keeping the story under wraps, or can you speak a little bit to the story a little bit right here? Because I'm a story guy.
Yeah, I can talk about the story a little bit, but essentially, these people, right, humans from all around the world. So that's another thing, is that the cast is culturally diverse intentionally, right? They're from literally every character from somewhere else on Earth, right? Our main characters from Nigeria. We got somebody from the Scandinavian region, some Japanese, some Taiwanese. American. They're all from different walks of life from different parts of the world. they all one day by happenstance get like sucked into this alternate world called the network, right? And the network is essentially this living sort of breathing world. Like when sometimes in lore and fantasy you talk about like Gaia, Earth, as like a living breathing thing. In this alternate dimension, that world is like alive basically, and it's overseen by an entity called the Sovereign. And essentially the laws of physics are kind of inverted in this alternate dimension to where energy is an infinite thing, but physical matter is like more limited than this here. The humans kind of quickly realize that like, oh, if we could funnel this energy to Earth, then we would have potentially unlimited energy and shenanigans ensue. That's basically the gist, the kind of surface level.
Ça donne même pas, du coup, censé présenter son jeu, mais ça donne même pas envie de s'y intéresser, tu vois.
Il y a même pas d'image, rien du tout. Il y a même pas d'image, rien du tout.
Oui, c'est ça.
About the story, about a lot to do with the game's identity and the expectation of players committing an amount of time to it so that they don't feel like that they have to do homework outside of the game to drive a connection with it. Games now are emerging in a space where let me rephrase and say all media is emerging into a space where they are competing with each other. So whether you're a game or a cartoon or a movie, the attention space is like a continuously crowded economy. And so, looking to keep your players in this environment in hopes that they will dedicate that time and expand upon the story. It sounds like a huge undertaking, one that it commands standing out with some of these other arena fighters that you were pointing to. What do you think about that? Emerging into a saturated space, emerging into a space where the goal of keeping players attuned to the game is going to be really important. Are there other elements that are going along with the story to keep people coming back for more?
Yeah, I think the big thing, like the competitive kind of drive. The game needs to be deep, right? From a competitive standpoint, to have a sustainable player base, that sustains over time. I think another thing also is like at this point with most fighting games, like you need to show your player base that you're gonna put more time into it outside of just the initial release. So you're gonna expect like some kind of downloadable content, whether it's more characters and things like that down the line, which are all things, conversations we're having and plans we're making. I obviously can't speak to anything definitively like that at this time, but all conversations we're having about how to make sure that Netcode Warriors is it's not just a game, it's an intellectual property, right? That can extend past just the game itself, right? Yeah. Like whether we get to make like a Netcode Warriors 2 or 3 or whatever, right? Like we've already had conversations about some of the story elements that would play into Netcode Warriors 2 if we got to make that. And we have some very interesting kind of fighting games are very hard to market. You need to show players that there's something, either you usually need IP or something unique or something they're familiar with. So one thing is obviously like character designers who've worked at Marvel and worked in Bandai and Digimon. Like that was like one pull. Another pull that I can't go into too much detail about, but I can basically explain is that we got some pretty prominent content creators in the fighting game community to agree to to let us use their likenesses actually as characters in the game, as playable characters in the game. So that's.
J'y croyais pas, on a trouvé pire que l'horror showcase.
Because I think it really creates this like fandom kind of relationship between the game and those content creators and their communities, right? That I think will really accent kind of the IP in an interesting way.
Je suis sûr qu'il y avait matière à faire.
To remind folks watching, you are
bien mieux en plus.
The CEO of Sun Studios and also the game director. So you're actually multiple projects.
Beaucoup de jeux créés par des gens
Talk
divers.
to us about like what does your typical day look like
when we're talking about
literally being part of crafting the business, which is the game. Games in your case, but then also having to operate also on the kind of business side of things.
Yeah. So we're currently still fully self-funded. So I do have a day job that I have, that I do as well. That allows us to, and myself and my other co-owners, we all have day jobs that we use that allows to fund the studio. So a decent amount of my day obviously is going to that, and most of my Sun Studios related work is outside of that work day, generally speaking. I mentioned earlier I don't get a lot of sleep. I wasn't hyperbolizing. That's just like generally how things are right now. I'm the game director on both this and
on a vu combien de jeux là depuis le début là? On a vu 3 jeux, 4 jeux?
Ouais, 3, 4.
And so that does demand a lot of my attention because a lot of
à la limite, ils auraient fait un focus, tu vois, sur les 3-4 jeux de, je sais pas, de 10 minutes. Genre, tu mets pas un mec tout seul, je sais pas. Surtout le trailer, il présente rien. Là, il parle de son jeu, à quel point les mécaniques sont profondes, mais on voit rien du jeu, quel est l'intérêt.
Yeah. If you're creative, if you're a game director, we know that, some of those regimented moments kind of feel like locking ourselves into a box. Jesse, it's been a pleasure to learn more about Netcode Warriors and understand what you and Sun Studios are doing for not only this, but the other projects that have been alluded to during this conversation.
S'ils prennent une sauce, c'est mérité, le contenu il est nul.
So much, but is there anything that we maybe didn't get a chance to cover that you would like players to know about before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think, for us specifically, marketing has been a thing that we would like to do more of, right? I think we're planning on setting up, by the time this goes out, we probably should have like a Discord server people can join to kind of have community and talk with each other about the game and the characters that have been revealed and have more speculation about the story and different things like that. We want to, kind of announce some of the voice actors that we kind of had conversations with and cast for some of the roles and as well. So yeah, the game's kind of ramping up and the development's kind of ramping up in a very interesting way. I obviously cannot give a definitive release date for the game at this time, but the plan is to release it next year at some point. That I can say that now.
Yeah.
Next year, that's the plan.
Rock on.
C'est bon? Allez, next.
Well, this has been terrific just chatting with you, getting to know a little bit more about you, about Sun Studios, and about Netcode Warriors.
I appreciate this conversation a lot, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Si, c'est bon.
If you like what we're doing, then scan the QR code and consider supporting the XP Fund, which helps provide grants to underrepresented indie developers to help move their projects across the next stage of development. Now, let's get back to some more trailers.
Ah, enfin du gaming quand même. Rogue Eclipse. Donc une démo disponible.
Ils ont saboté leur con, je suis sûr qu'il y a des jeux cool.
Ouais, je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de monde qui sont partis déjà, hein, pour être honnête. Oh, je pensais pas à ça. Je sais pas que ce serait un truc comme ça. Oh, le tournoi de l'enfer. Campbell Star Crossing. Trop long le titre, trop long.
Tu dois pas avoir la ref. Je sais pas.
Non.
Ok, souvent dans les animés, t'as des camions qui écrasent des gens et puis voilà. C'est des twists à la con.
Ok.
D'où le nom de Truck Gun. C'est le pire ennemi des protagonistes d'anime. Et en vrai de vrai, si c'est un jeu à scoring, ça a l'air sympa. Ça se rapporte pas un petit moment, hein.
tout cas, ça arrive le 29 juillet sur Xbox et Steam.
It's time for a new hero.
Saturday Battle Manga.
Plum Road Tea Dream is gonna be a look into the life of S, which is my alter ego. So it's like a semi-autobiographical game. And S makes these virtual spaces for themselves that they call sanctuaries out of a wish or a need for a world that is more safe or for a world that accommodates better for grief and sadness, or for a world where they can imagine versions of themselves that like somehow find a hard time existing in real life. My name is Samuel Baido. I'm 32 years old. I'm based in Antwerp, Belgium. I work as a theater maker, performer, and mentor. And in the last 3-4 years, I've also been working as a game designer. I think it's a game that can be enjoyed by experienced players, but also by people that have no previous experience with video gaming. Next to walking being the main action, some of the things you will come across are like interactable words like read or sit or listen. Those are like some of the interactions you can do in the game. So it's rather simple. I think it's really about the experience, about getting to know the story of S, and spending time in these virtual sanctuaries. There are sanctuaries created for rest, sleep, and dreams, but there is also a sanctuary that kind of encapsulates a painful, even traumatic memory, I would say. There is a sanctuary that questions how we can grieve for people that we don't know but feel close to or feel connected to. So this is like almost a game inside of a game. It's just a circle of chairs with names on them. But I'll read out the little plaque with information. Sit with them. I hope to turn this into a game one day. A game where you walk and encounter names on chairs. A list of names of people of color in Belgium who were killed by the police. I wonder what it would be like to sit with them around a campfire. There is the homeworld that connects all of the sanctuaries, and in the homeworld, different iterations of S live. I call them NPCs, non-playable characters. And you can chat with them, and a big part of the game is actually to kind of help them get unstuck or to help them heal in some kind of way. I think the game is important to me for many different reasons. The creation of the game was really triggered by this traumatic event that's out of my youth that surfaced during the lockdown. A very painful rupture that I had with my father because of my sexuality. And already very early on, because of playtesting the game or kind of having these open door moments where people could come and test the game, I noticed that it really resonated with a lot of people, and that the game opened for them maybe some ways of like reflecting or philosophizing on the topics that it offers. I would get messages that would be like, wow, you inspired me to start writing again, like I'm journaling again. Somehow sharing this very personal story made a lot of people feel really seen. I also think Plum Road Tea Dream is important to me because it's like this hugely collaborative work. There are often comments on this work of like, whoa, I never thought about making games by 3D scanning clay sculptures that you make in real life. Or we also made this theater piece out of Plum Road Tea Dream, and there people are like, okay, you're using a video game as a medium for a live performance. I've never seen this. So I also think we pushed some boundaries in some ways and kind of bridged the game sector and the arts a little bit more. And we're just hoping that a lot of people find their way to it, play it, and enjoy it, and that it triggers something for them, that they get something out of it.
Plum Road disponible en Quick.
Hello and welcome back. I am joined by my lovely co-host.
Je rigole tout seul.
And also here we have combat designer and also
propos du jeu, il est
my
déprimant.
former colleague, Stephen O. How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Hanging in there. Weird time, but you know.
Sure. But it's good to see you again, you know?
Yeah, it's been a while. So let's just jump right in and get started. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of your path to becoming a combat designer?
Yeah, so my path as coming to a combat designer, it's like I had very humble beginnings.
En vrai, désolé, on parle pas beaucoup, hein, mais pas grand chose à dire en vrai, hein, les amis. Franchement,
introduced me to a bunch of comic books and action movies like the Five Deadly Venoms, Kid with the Golden Arms, and one of my favorites, you know, Bruce Leroy and the Last Dragon. And I just wanted to become these kind of characters. So I would start like taking gymnastics and doing kung fu and things like that. It's just to be the character. And when I translated that energy into like making games, I like realized that not just being a game designer, I could also be a person that creates these sort of action figures or adversaries or even the heroes to allow people to feel like that person I was trying to capture and become myself, you know? So went to school for it. I went to school at Rochester Institute of Technology. I didn't know anything about programming really before that. I took like one class in high school, and RIT was just starting to have a games program, and I wanted to make sure that I can get into the program. I started talking to, like, I originally went there for IT, knowing that they're going to have this game program, and I lined all my classes to be like a good game designer and have them transfer over because I didn't have a whole lot of money to like stay there extra years. And then along the way, I met a lot of people that had been working in games and had an internship where they realized there's a specific role for a combat designer, a person who makes the enemies or a person who works on the hero and their interactions. So that was like my first foray into getting into realizing the role of a combat designer.
You said that you took like martial arts classes to that. So what was like, I guess, what was the process of like taking that experience from that and then like applying it to combat design?
Yeah, so like I grew up in like moving my body and understanding like punches and kicks, right? Being able to throw them yourself. And then you sort of get into the space where you're trying to like read your opponent. They're going to start doing punches and kicks. And as I gotten older, I was like, okay, well, I can't just go out fighting everybody. And somehow like you learn this kind of dialogue with the person that you're like sparring with or fighting with that I like really just couldn't get enough of, because it's like that movie quote from The Matrix: you don't know somebody until you fight them. Or you can really learn them as you fight them. Like you start to anticipate their movements, you make moves that you're trying to train them to do certain things, right? And that's great in real life, but you can't do that all the time. So I started playing fighting games, and back in the day, you know, PlayStation came with a demo of Tekken, and it had the same movements that I had like learned when I was growing up. So I started doing like amateur competitive Tekken matches all the way up until college. And in doing that, I learned like frame data and different things too. So it's a little bit of like learning how my body moved, understanding the mechanics of making a good punch, then being able to read that mechanic in the actual games, like how the characters were throwing punches and the frame data and the speed that it happens, that allowed me to take all that knowledge and translate it into, these are how we're going to make these characters readable. This is how we're going to make this style feel good. And then there's this meta style to it as well of like, okay, well, this is for a person who wants to be a rushdown character or a zoner. This is for the people that like grappling. And you just kind of have your expression. And then as you play your friends, you kind of know their behavior, and you're like, okay, he knows that I'm gonna do this, and I know that he's gonna do this, so that's how I counter it. You know, so a little bit of that.
You talked a little bit about it being kind of a dialogue and kind of learning how somebody fought. Like, I'm interested to know, what is your approach? Like, let's just say it's a clean slate. This character's never been done before. What is your approach to coming up with this initial combat design for characters?
Yeah, you really want to come up with like, what's the core fantasy of this character? What is his background? What is their background? Why are they trying to express themselves through violence, right? Like, how are they going to communicate? So somebody who might grow up in an adversarial environment, they might feel more aggressive, or like, you have to beat people to the punch. Like, the world is so chaotic around me that I have to be more aggressive to get stability. So the first thing I just try to do is like, what is the character's fantasy, and then build that kind of backstory that fits with them. And then I look at gameplay moments that are going to support that. Like I just mentioned, if the person has to be hyper aggressive, then I'm like, okay, maybe their stance is always going to be slightly forward, and they're going to be a more aggressive pose, and they're going to have more dominating moves that like either armored, or armored meaning like they absorb a hit while they're giving a hit. Or if I'm going to make somebody who grew up in a little bit more naive or more playful, maybe they're going to be more standoffish back, or like they kind of think that even in the heat of battle, it's like a game, or like it's silly to them, it's like fun. They're going to be more like
Mais c'était là l'année dernière. Hein.
Oui, ça fait des années. C'est déjà là à l'époque de l'E3.
C'est comme ça tout le temps.
Je sais plus.
Yeah, and
Je regarde pas tous les ans, donc je sais plus. L'année dernière, je l'ai pas regardé.
How does design relate to other elements of the game, such as narrative?
I often think that like in a fight,
Non, je
you're
sais plus.
going
Attends.
to have
Je vais voir
this
sur ma chaîne.
natural back and forth of like taking turns. Basically, you're saying
je vais
things and
dire
they're
ça.
responding to it, right? So there's already this like action
Non.
and response that comes from just the
Je vais voir
moveset
YouTube Studio. C'est YouTube
alone.
Studio. J'ai plus YouTube
But you can
Studio.
tell a dialogue through, or a story really, through the environment. How did it change over time? You don't always have to show damage on a actual character. You can show how things are breaking in the environment. You can show how this person's getting a little bit more desperate during the fight. How there is a reversal or double down. Basically, like, you think they're winning, and then they do something, and now you're losing. You know, you're on the back foot. So that's just the choreography of the fight, how it can turn into dialogue. But there's also like maybe they learned a new ability, maybe something that's unlocked from them, from a core memory. How does that fit into the story? How does this new unlockable mechanic fits thematically to where the character's goals are, and how does their opponent stand in the way of that goal? It's not always good versus evil. It might be my goals versus your goals. You want to, make the world feel all the pain that you felt, or you want to stop the world from feeling pain ever again.
On n'avait pas React il y a 2 ans.
Fair question. I have another question for you. Are there any types of styles of combat you've really yet to see in a game?
2 ans non plus.
And how would you kind of approach that? First of all, what are they? And then also, like, how would you kind of approach that and want to like bring that into the game?
Oh, well, I feel like I've seen a lot of different martial arts, a lot of different styles in games, and I kind of specialize more so in melee combat. There's a lot of different ways to approach combat with like magical abilities.
C'est en 2022.
Gunplay.
La dernière fois que je l'ai React.
So,
ok.
I don't know if
Donc,
I can
il y a
really
4 ans.
speak
C'était
to
encore
it.
le 3 du
I
coup à
haven't
l'époque.
seen at all.
Ils auraient pu
Because
faire
like
une conf
even
de 15-20 minutes.
Capoeira,
Il y a des jeux cool dans le
starting
tas,
to
mais
see a
là c'est
bigger
dilué
resurgence
par
of
tout le
that. We
blabla
haven't seen a whole lot of
insupportable.
Alors, il y a un monde où c'est de la merde à l'époque déjà.
Je
J'ai pas cliqué dessus, mais c'est 2022, elle dure 11 minutes. Il y a un monde où j'ai racheté au bout de 11 minutes.
Oh.
Attends, je vais lancer la VOD pour voir.
Non, mais en plus, les jeux présentés sont sympas. C'est juste le format, il est.
But one might go with this approach where we're thought of life that started in Africa. What if the original African martial art is what it brings in all these other different styles? Like basically the style that whether it be Muay Thai, Taekwondo, or Taido, or something like that, evolved from that style, that original martial arts style, and that expressive style. So, how could you make this?
Ah, c'était déjà Blablaland. On a entendu.
Interesting origin style that like encompasses the different things. So it's like, oh, you thought you knew you thought you knew this.
Je
but,
crois que
like, I
je crois que
invented
t'es
it, and
avec
I
qui?
actually didn't share with you all the pieces. You just have like a fragment of everything I know.
Yeah, yeah. Just like you didn't share all the ideas that you
Mais
had.
clairement.
I get it. All right.
That's a freebie.
Pourquoi je racontais avec qui? C'était qui le mec qui parlait?
Go ahead and try. The other idea.
Yeah.
En 2022, je racontais avec qui?
I got you.
So I kind of wanted to go back to when you were talking about your like taking martial arts and whatnot. What was your favorite like martial arts, I guess, inspired piece of media, like as in
C'est qu'à cette
like
voix-là.
a film or a video game that like really inspired
Hugo, non?
you know you as a combat designer?
Non, Hugo, il était pas aussi
Even
aussi
to this
grave.
day, like I love John Wick movies.
Si.
I love
Non,
also
2020,
the new action films
si
that
peut-être
are coming
2022, j'étais
out.
juste avec
The
Hugo.
earliest ones for me would have to be like Kid with the Golden Arms or Five Deadly Venoms.
Ah là là.
Five Deadly Venoms is sort of
Ouais,
like
j'ai le planning de
your
2022 sur Discord.
Avengers before they were Avengers, right? Like you have these five different
Je sais pas, je l'ai
styles
plus, je
that
pense.
had
Attends,
had these like tropes and things
les
with
Summer
them.
Game
But
Fest,
you start to get the
info.
super abilities, the centipede, really fast,
Ah
the
non, ça
snake
monte pas
agile, the toad,
2025, ce truc-là.
vulnerable, right? And how do they play together? So that was influential about like how do you come up with different techniques that speak to the theme of the character you're
Info
making,
stream,
and then how
streamer.
can they be opposed to each other even if they've like learned from the same school. But the other one that was super influential for me, and I
2022.
feel like it spawned like Dragon Ball Z in a way, is got to be The Last Dragon, right? Like it's a cult classic. Maybe it's not the absolute best movie on the planet, right? But there's so many things about the character progression. Like you're already a master, but it's inside. Or, you know, you need to break through these own limitations that you have. And the glow is totally going Super Saiyan. And that's like a designer signature that I put in a lot of characters that I worked on. If you know, you know. Like a lot of the things that I worked on,
Pas de blague
they
aussi.
eventually get the glow or go Super Saiyan. Right? So those are a couple. I mean, there's so many more. The Raid for me, On Bak. I train Muay Thai to this day because of On Bak and things like that. So yeah.
Oh, the raid is intense. It's anxiety. It's sad.
Yeah.
So good. Speaking of just the titles you worked on,
Je faisais pas de prog avec les noms à l'époque.
different games. Would you mind telling an audience a little bit more?
On faisait encore le
about those
coffee
games
time.
that you've had the luxury of working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started
Ok.
making games for. I've
Il
been
y avait un
making games
coffee
for
time au
over 10 years
milieu
now, a bunch of
2 jours avant le Black Voice.
Midnight Chronicles to working on Project Spark.
Ah, c'est peut-être
to
Flo.
Fat
Non,
Princess
Flo, il faisait pas de
Adventures.
conférence.
But
Il a
I
peut-être
think
fait une
my
conférence.
big
Et peut-être
break
c'est
was
ça, parce qu'il a fait juste cette
actually working on God of
conférence-là,
War
le
2018.
pauvre.
I joined the team at a
Peut-être
part
Flo.
of the projects where I had a lot of influence over the encounters, and they really liked what I did, so they brought me back to be working on the grunts or
Comment
like
ça s'appelle
more
qui est
basic
connu
units. So first I worked on how, with this new camera, how we're gonna have these fights be readable and digestible and feel good. And then I worked on how do we make these creatures fit into this world a little better, and mini bosses and bosses. So I worked on
Bah, je sais pas.
Ragnarok and then the DLC.
Pour les
Valhalla,
infos stream,
where I
peut-être que
combined
j'ai mis un
both my
truc.
encounters knowledge and
Non,
my
ça date de
character
2024, le début.
creature making knowledge. And then I wanted to take all the things
Bah,
that
je
I
sais pas
learned
qui j'étais.
by hanging out with Kratos and some
Ouais.
of the fantastic
Eh
people
ben.
from Santa Monica to work on Black Panther, and that's where we got to hang out a little bit. And I learned so much on that team.
Parce qu'après, j'ai
But
pas d'autres
sadly, you know, we can't get to talk
channels.
about it or
Donc, je l'ai
show it
supprimé le
or
channel
do
entre
things
temps,
about
depuis
that.
2022.
So now I'm just helping other studios
J'avoue
with their
que
projects, and big
ça a pas
projects
mal
that
changé.
are unannounced, so I won't be able to talk about them too much, but it's similar to
Bah, je me rappelle pourquoi je l'ai pas fait pendant
things that
4
I've
ans.
learned along the way.
Allez, bon, on saura maintenant.
Do you have any favorite combat moments?
Bah, je me
among
rappelais
games you've
plus, hein. C'était
contributed
peut-être il y a
to?
4 ans.
Oh yeah, there's so many. Let me try to pick one. This is a huge moment for me on God of War 2018. I'm responsible for a lot of deaths in the basically Draugr pit. So that's where the bridge breaks and Atreus falls down.
Moi, j'ai mon titre de
Kratos jumps
VOD
in
déjà.
to, you know, jump down.
Ça va être,
There
ça va
are
être,
3
vous
heavy
aimez les
bosses
tunnels?
that spawn in that fight, and that massacred a lot of people. So, you know, in playtest data, we see a heavy drive.
On se fait des ramen pendant la conférence, ça tourne mal.
Once you get past that, you're prepared for the rest of the game. Like once you're able to overcome that challenge, you have all the tools that you need to beat the game. So even though it is a frustrating moment for a lot of people, I think
L'horror
it
show
helps a lot of
game.
people
10 sur 10 à côté.
To learn to play the actual game instead of relying on like first tier tactics, like early tactics.
Bon, on va discuter
The
un
other moment
moment.
I
Est-ce que bientôt la
that
Coupe
I
du
really
Monde?
enjoy is actually right in front of the stonemason.
Je sais pas si je vais avoir trop le temps de regarder. En vrai, c'est pas mal la nuit, donc quand je travaille de nuit, ça va être pas mal. Moi, je vais me faire des nuits de foot. Je crois que les matchs, c'est genre jusqu'à 2h du matin, non? Ou 3h du mat?
But actually, we
sais même
bring
plus.
like an old trope from the
Aujourd'hui,
previous
je
God
dis
of
ça
War
parce qu'aujourd'hui, je
games,
me suis acheté,
where
tu sais,
spawn a
les
large
petits trucs à compléter
usually
là,
a
où tu mets les
cyclops,
scores
for
et
us,
tout.
it was a ogre.
Et du coup,
Ah oui.
And
ouais,
then
je pense à
you
ça.
spawn another ogre. So right when you think like you fought this one challenging fight to like now there's an ogre and then there's like 2 ogres. How am I ever gonna do this? But it's set up in such a way that the pacing of the encounter
Ouais, des matchs à
empowers
3h du mat.
so you're like
C'est là que ça se finit à 4h30, 5h.
the threat of it. But
Il y a même
as
des
you
matchs à
overcome
4h.
that fight, you're like, oh yeah, I am
Putain,
boss.
vivement- j'espère que c'est les nuits où je bosse comme ça.
Those 2 moments, like
Je fais des
frustrating
nuits
moment that turns
complètes de
into,
foot.
like, now you have the skills to beat
Ouais.
the game, and then
Ça fait passer le temps.
I was scared.
Bah ouais.
But it was actually a totally doable fight.
How do you balance that? Because as you know, we've worked on
Ah ouais,
projects
ouais.
together, and
Ah, c'est quoi les
sometimes
matchs qui sont à
fine-tuning
4h du mat?
and
Parce que bon,
balancing, encounters and combat can prove
c'est
to be a
drôle,
challenge in and
mais.
of itself. So, kind of, what's your approach to just making sure things just
Ah,
feel good?
oh, le match à 4h du mat où tu
Yeah,
tapes un
so the
Corée du
approach to
Sud,
like
République
making things
tchèque.
feel good
Oh, let's go.
first, just like
Ah, j'ai
I
trop hâte.
always tune or start
Ils sont pas si
fighting
nuls dans la
with,
Corée du Sud.
an
C'est
encounter
d'outsider.
with
Oui, mais
basic
bon.
things. Like I always just use basic
Qu'est-ce qu'on a
attacks.
là?
So
On a
if I'm
Canada,
making a trick
Qatar, un
for a
balion.
boss or an
Oui, je
encounter,
préfère mater la
I
Corée
should
du
be
Sud.
able to
Tous les
defeat
jours.
it with just pressing the
Là,
single
on a
attack
quoi là?
button,
3h du mat.
blocking
Oh,
and
un petit
dodging,
Haïti-Écosse.
and 0 damage.
Trop hâte.
That
Ah, ça
lets
peut,
me
ça va être
know
marrant en
that
vrai.
the animation
Ah, il y a
Avoir
moyen de
l'Écosse
se-
jouer au foot là.
il y a moyen de se barrer, bah, surtout Haïti,
if I
mec.
do
Plus
get
que
hit, then
l'Écosse,
like, okay, I need
Haïti,
to
mec.
like time out or I need to put
Ah, tu sais
piece of
pas.
health or something that you can like
Ouais, qu'est-ce qu'on a? Oh putain, il y a un match à 6h du mat.
and then
Australie-Turquie.
the other parts is just like
Wow.
thinking about the fairness and the fatigue that you might
Turquie,
have
Paraguay.
after seeing X amount of units, X amount of
Magnifique, ça.
heavy fights, X amount of times where you needed to parry
Ouais, il y a
or
quoi,
in
là?
one particular encounter, and how much
Ouais,
time
il y a pas trop
that
tard hein,
encounter
sur
is
ce
going to
truc-là.
be. So if you're fighting a boss, maybe that's 4 minutes, and I'm like, all right, well, I need to balance. I have
Dans
to
ce
play this
groupe-là,
with my very
au
basic
Tunisie,
defending,
Japon.
punching, and not get hit for 4 minutes straight.
Au Japon,
That
faut
could
se
be
méfier.
taxing for somebody. So
Ouais, ils sont pas si nuls.
how do I
Et ils
make
sont bons au
the
foot depuis le
character
projet Boulep.
interesting enough in those 4 minutes that somebody's not overstimulated or
Oh, un
fatigued
petit
from
Iran,
doing all the
Nouvelle-Zélande.
actions that I have to do. So it's super high level. I'd love to go
Allez,
into more
un
detail
Iran,
about it, but
Nouvelle-Zélande,
that's kind of where I
magnifique.
start.
No, I appreciate that. No, good.
Qu'est-ce qu'on a là?
I
Oh, le
I
Cap,
think,
Cap Vert,
something
Arabie
that I'm really
Saoudite.
curious about too, like
Magnifique.
when you're
On va se
doing
barrer la
kind of
nuit, hein.
the balancing, like what is your, I guess, the priority you think about in terms of combat?
c'est
'Cause
la
I always think
France,
about like
la
when
France,
I'm playing a game, do you think more about like the offensive, I
La
guess,
France, c'est
or
jamais
like
la
more of
nuit.
like the
Barcelone,
defensive, or like
ils s'adaptent
magical
à nos
parts, or
horaires.
like I don't know if that makes
bah,
sense, but like what
oui,
do
je
you
pense.
try and prioritize, I guess, when
Alors
you're
imagine on
starting,
se fait
like when
éliminer
you're
dès le début.
planning that out for
Oh, ce serait chaud, hein.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
you know,
sure.
we were saying dialogue before, but it's really
Qu'est-ce
about the
qu'on a là?
dance. Like even if you go back to those movies that I was talking about, they're not really
Jordanie,
fighting.
Algérie.
They're kind of like doing this
C'est bien
sequence
ça,
of
Jordanie,
dances, you
Algérie.
know,
Je sais pas ce que c'est la
serious
Jordanie.
partner.
Si, c'est en
So
Afrique,
how
ça.
do you make this person interesting? It's not just about defending.
Pas du tout.
If the player's just defending, then that
Groupe
doesn't feel
K,
very
qu'est-ce
good.
qu'on
I'm
a?
just kind of waiting for
Oh là
my
là,
turn, and then I
Ouzbékistan,
parry, and
Congo.
then I just beat 'em up.
Magnifique.
Right? So, what other action verbs can we get? I need to dodge out of the way. Sometimes I need to parry. Is this my opportunity to take my turn back? Can I do this risky thing sometimes?
Enfin bref.
La Jordanie est un pays arabe situé sur la rive orientale du Jourdain.
Ouais, c'est africain, quoi.
So my priorities start off with how do we make this dance interesting? Both the player and the combatant have verbs where they can go back and forth with
Ouais,
each other.
c'est africain, quoi.
Readable is the second part.
Non, non,
Now that
c'était
we
hors du
have those
continent
verbs,
africain.
you need to defend at this time. I need to signal to you that
Ouais,
this is
c'est
the move
africain.
that you need to get out of the way of.
Oh,
And
quel
then this
enfer.
is the move that you need to block. Or this is the move that you need to interrupt, right? And then the third part is like, well, how much
Non, c'est en
damage
Arabie.
or like how many tries do you get at those attempts? If the player is getting hit once,
Ouais, mais
and
oui,
then
c'est dans le
getting
Koweït et
over
tout
it
par là-bas,
can
non?
be really
Ouais, il est
stressful. But maybe some attacks
Oh,
are
regarde.
C'est pas que
more
du
punishing
Koweït?
than others.
C'est à
So
la
now
limite
that's the
de la...
signature kind of
Ouais.
sometimes
Et
called
juste au-dessus de
signature
l'Arabie
kill move,
Saoudite,
where
mais
it's
c'est
like,
pas
I
sur
need
le
to watch
continent
out for
africain.
that because it's just going to level me.
C'est à la limite de
So,
l'Égypte et
and
d'Israël.
then you
Du
just
coup.
want to make that like a part of that core kit. That
Ouais,
was
ouais.
the one interesting thing that I had to remember. And maybe I have a signature move too that I want to land. I need
On
to be
aura
able to
tout quelque
cleave him,
chose.
but which way is he going to dodge? Is he going to left or right? And I feel really good when I pick the right correction, the right side.
Steven, it is always a pleasure to kind of
Ouais, ça va
hear
être
you
lazy du
dive
coup.
into the nitty gritty of combat design. I've heard it several times, and every single time I feel
Ah,
like I
ça sent
leave
bon.
learning something new.
Ce
So
chiffre là.
thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you on
Oh,
the
tu me donnes
internet?
faim.
Yeah, you can find me on my
Juste manger mes
LinkedIn,
2 yaourts
Aram
là.
GBA, and yeah, I'm happy to help you crack battles that everybody can win. And it's always great meeting you guys. Thanks for having me.
C'est fini?
Back again to remind you of the SP fund because your
Allez.
contributions can help get the next
Non mais
great
c'est
indie game off the
le
ground.
tunnel est fini.
Consider supporting by scanning the QR code.
On va pouvoir revoir 2 jeux avant le prochain tunnel. Enfin 3 jeux.
Granny
C'est
used
3
to
jeux
tell
par
me
3 jeux.
all manner of stories about rolling calf and how I'm used to start the countryside. But River Mama and the golden table share take time get out by Flatbridge. But the 3-foot horse and him not afraid of moonlight.
Ouais, des têtes qui vont de gauche à droite.
But old hig who are gallivant all night without ski.
Ça a l'air trop bien.
But crocodile man and how you know for answer me if him nap 3 times. She even tell me about the lad diablesse
Mais c'est
with
voir
her
mon
one
tic-tac
purple
là.
and white brim hats. How about how Sly Mongoose teeth out one of the man righteous chicken then? Hey, those were good times, you know. Good times.
Depuis Détective Tachia. On n'a rien vu, juste des têtes qui bougent et le nom des persos. Ah si, on en voit.
I've been waiting to take a deep dive into the abyss, but I missed my chance to advance and enhance considerably makeshift.
Oh, c'est un autre jeu ça.
Scar tissue abrasive, a menacing, tending tennis, fencing, hence the location. Given that I've been living different morals, plural grievances, a legion, relieving numerals to the oracle. Sometimes it sounds horrible. Formulaic, my behavior here to sell a moon consumed dendrites. Not ever living aneurysm combusted. Another term turns families into nothing. For greater good, I get understood. I gotta remain afloat. No lane left stain. Is it insane how I name my quotes? I speak into existence, a brief relief condition. Couldn't occupy the sky without permission. As long as the spell cast, my nature into value have you driven, live in nexus. Authority to the normally, formerly known, shown everything, except for the weapons kept swept under anything. You get it?
Beatdown City.
My name's Xavier B. Johnson, and this is Diesel Nights.
Hi, I'm Indigo Doyle, Creative Director at Pushing Vertices, located in Toronto, Canada, where we're making Roller Girl, a slice of life adventure about Naomi, a 16-year-old girl in the 2000s, vibing with her rollerblades and her MP3 player. This game is a love letter to my childhood, rollerblading through the quiet streets of my hometown with my own personal soundtrack loaded up. Okay, I'm gonna tell you a secret. I love rollerblading and music. And that's why we spent a long time perfecting the movement in the game to make it feel smooth and purposeful. And when it comes to music, I always have a soundtrack for how I'm feeling.
etc.
Ah oui.
In Roller Girl, the music is linked to the mood of the game.
Ah, pour le coup, ça a l'air d'être un bon jeu. Hein. C'est juste que c'est la 4e fois qu'on le voit, quoi.
From happy.
Ouais, puis c'est la pire con.
Voilà.
Sad. The mood influences other characters' responses to you and your dialogue options. Key story moments also impact the mood. We are curating a soundtrack inspired by 2000s pop punk by connecting with local indie bands. So far, we're featuring artists Narima and King Fabs. There's something about the way it feels to effortlessly glide down a smooth street. Your favorite music playing in your earbuds, and for a moment, it's like time stops, and you're just in a flow state. That's what Roller Girl represents. Your wheels on, your music up, and the freedom to move. the freedom to explore and learn about yourself as you go. You start the game having just gotten your first car, which breaks down immediately. Desperate for cash to fix it, you lace up your rollerblades and grab your MP3 player. You do odd jobs around town, stumble into a romance, and uncover a juicy town mystery. I don't know about you, but I used to spend a lot of time in my head. Back in the day, I would rollerblade around my hometown inventing backstories for my neighbors. There's a certain charm to small towns, and I can't wait for you to poke around and find the little stories I've hidden behind fences and around corners. Thanks for taking this tour with me, and thank you to the Black Voices in Gaming Showcase. I can't wait to see you find your vibe in Roller Girl.
Roller Girl.
We are back with Black Voice in Game. You see how that we just like push right into it. I am here with Lizette and Marcus Montgomery, Cornerstone Studios, and they are working on your first game as a studio, which is Carrier Cuties. It has like a really interesting premise to it for sure. But I want to know how you guys started Cornerstone Studios, because it's like you guys are like super vets. Even I'm like, just the stuff that you guys have done, it puts me in awe. So can you guys talk about how you started the studio and a little bit about
State of Play, il y aura mon capital sympathie.
We're not new to this. We've been doing this for
Ça ne peut que être mieux.
Some of us have been doing it for 3 decades. So we've worked in console.
En fait, une machination pour éviter les rageux sur State of Play. On endort tout le monde avant, comme ça, State of Play se passe mieux.
Que ce soit bien ou pas, ce sera bien quand même.
Exactement.
That's super awesome. And kind of what led you to, you guys know I'm a big fighting game fan. It's like my favorite genre. I play every fighting game.
Bon, on faut faire une pause toilette. Hein,
how did you kind of come up with this style of game and kind of want to make a fighting game for your first title?
You know, a lot of this comes back inherently. I'm come from that arcade area. That arcade era where fighting games was really prevalent. I like that twitch, fast responsive sort of gameplay. It's a lot of the games I've worked on prior have had that. And so this is kind of just falls into that pocket. To really get into what inspired this, I think, Lisette, maybe we should talk about our grandson a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got a grandson, he's 6. And we, one of the things we love to do is like break out old consoles and old games and just have fun with him and relive the nostalgia of, us playing as a child with our grandson. And one day we broke out the Dreamcast and put in Power Still, and we were just having a blast. Particularly my grandson Morris, was having an amazing time. And we were like, what happened to this game and why hasn't it come back? And everyone we talk to has like such affinity for it. They're like, oh, I remember that game. Yeah. And they get this like the total like twinkly eye look to it. And I'm like, so what happened? And I was like, well, maybe if we bring this back with like a fresh IP and make it like, update the mechanics and, bring it into an area where co-play and like team-based mechanics are sort of like pushed a little bit further. And so, that's how kind of got the ball rolling. Was just a fun playtime with our grandson.
That's amazing. And you were mentioning this earlier, you have a collection of like a vast collection of games?
Been collecting games for a very, very long time. We've, between the different eras, we even go back to the Atari, but the Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, Saturn games.
Saturn? That's awesome.
That's
cool. Yeah.
My first job in the industry was at Sega. And so,
really?
Yes. So I have a huge affinity for Sega and their, the the litany of games that they have. But we've been collecting and carrying a bunch of different digital and physical media for a while, so our collection is pretty big.
So,
it also doesn't help that you have like an encyclopedic knowledge of game design, so that also
really
helps.
that's I may need to hit you up about that. Not for my own, you know what I mean, resources and whatnot. No, that's really cool. So if you're looking at your library of games and your grandson, you know, was a little bit frustrated at some of the games that he's playing, what made you like decide to pick this one? Like from, you know what I mean? You're just like, do you remember this particular Power Stone? And you're just like,
with kids, you expose them to a lot of different things. You never know what's going to stick, and so we're always.
J'ai raté un truc de fou.
Ouais, il y a GTA 6 qui a été annoncé.
Ah merde, putain, j'ai raté ça.
We also want to expose them to new things.
Mince alors.
The Dreamcast is one of those things, and Power Stone is one of the many things we tried.
Mon œil qui me
That was
démange.
one of the first things that he really attached, and he would ask about it. And it was a lot of it also is because I have the old arcade stick as well. So
you had the arcade stick?
Yeah, and he saw the stick and he was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Come, son, let me show you
that must
what this is about." Yeah,
fantastic
to
expose.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
and we really love the fact that we found something we could connect with him, and we find that to be a very unique experience, and we want to make sure that how can we replicate that not just for us but for other people as well. There's a lot of nostalgia around these sort of games, and people of our age may want to be able to share it with the kids that they have, and we think that we have a unique way to kind of bridge that intergenerational play.
That's cool. So rolling into this, Lizette, like how did you come up with this particular game? And then can you talk about the premise of it, because it's extremely interesting.
I think all good games that kind of hit the zeitgeist often reflect like the conversation we're currently having, and the conversation we're all currently having is AI. So
like a 90s rap song.
So I was like, let's and there's assumptions that we all come to, which is like, we're all going to eventually be killed by robots. So let's just play out to the worst scenario what that may look like and make it absurd and stupid. So I started thinking about what a post-AI world would look like, and I'm like, well, our pets are still here, so of course they'd be the ones who take over the world. What would that look like, and what would they do with their free time? And then you start doing these really silly like world and logic exercises, and then you end up with some really wild story, and that's kind of how we ended up here. Carrier Cuties takes place in the future, where AI does what AI is going to do, and eventually humans are extinct. And our pets essentially become sentient and take over the world we've left behind. And they build battle bots in the shape of their former owners to battle out their primitive instincts. And that's sort of the premise behind this.
So they died. So their owners straight up are gone. Yeah. And then they're just like remembering their humans.
Yes.
Did the pets didn't kill them? AI killed them.
Yeah, AI killed them.
Because I'm like, this is so sad.
AI killed them.
Like AI killed them. Yeah. AI's gonna do what they're gonna do.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. We're gonna play, and then I think it would be really interesting to just kind of go over the character design, the pet design, and then kind of your approach to art, and that kind of thing. So I'm gonna try to play and talk at the same time.
I will give you some tips as we're playing.
Okay.
Just press X and Y a lot, and you'll be fine.
Okay, so what's the character? This particular character.
This is essentially our boxer and our boxer. So essentially, the boxer pet is piloting his humek, as we call it.
Humek.
And essentially, they appear as humans at first, and as you sort of unlock super modes, their robot abilities reveal themselves to you.
That's cool. So you guys have pets, dogs?
Yes, we do.
Because the Scoop, that's notorious. That's when you're like, you're like, what the hell are you doing?
It's time for a bath.
Yeah, it's you gotta handle that. You gotta handle that in pleasant ways. But we really want to pull in the humor as much as we can of the characters that we have. And while this is still early, we want to be able to represent the humor and the character and the humanity of it all. So very much like the classic Power Stone game, you've got dive kicks. You can pick up and push different objects in the world. You can pick up tables, throw them at your opponent. Ooh. There's hazards in the world as well.
Throw your opponent into the stove. If you hit them against that wall, you'll also see the barrels knocked out on them. So you can also use the world to your advantage.
So I have like homing gloves.
Yeah, the rocket fists.
So how did I get this this power up right here?
So there's power cells, like you just, as you finished, much like the classic game, there's power cells that will spawn across the map. And if you're able to pick up 3, you're able to then transform into what would be eventually your pet mech. That's not represented in this prototype build, but that is something that we will have in the future.
Wait, what does that mean? What do you mean?
So currently, when you get your 3 power stones, you stay in your boxer form, but we are debuting a new character with the new build where you're actually going to switch into your pet mech form.
Really?
So you're going to have more pet-like abilities once you get your super moves.
Oh, I got deaded.
You can see the pet mech in our current trailer.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, that's awesome. Which we will debut, or we already have debuted. I mean, you guys debuted it, so
you'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
People who were on site at the mix were able to see the actual maquette that I built for it.
Oh, that was cool. So talk a little bit about like the kind of practical creation of the characters.
Yeah, so one of the things when we were talking about what we wanted to do in the studio, I also wanted to change my process of how I created characters and assets, and try to take advantage of, all this new technology we have with photogrammetry, and my natural ability to sculpt with physical material and clay. So I'm building all the characters in physical clay, scanning them in using photogrammetry, retopologizing them, and then animating them for combat. And you can also see the visual effects. So we're taking advantage of the style and uniqueness that we get from physical materials, and then also taking advantage of all of the wonderful things that Unreal 5 affords us to kind of push the dynamics and the style and the interactivity of the characters in the world. So it's been, it's a nice mix for me where I get to get physical and use my hands, and then I can get digital and take advantage of, the advantages that come with that.
So how does this differ from when you were at Double Fine? I mean, you've been, like you said, close to 3 decades. How does this differ? I mean, because you wanted to get it more hands-on, but when you were at previous studios, how did you develop art there? Because you were directed and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I started as a character modeler for 12 years and worked my way up until I became like a lead and an art director. So most of my process has always been digital. Maybe at the beginning when we're kind of dealing with sketching and doing brainstorms and loose sketches of a character, you get paper and you could get hands-on with some oil and paint. But once it gets into the 3D phase, often you're in a digital space. And so for me, I really wanted to take advantage of designing things physically first so that the toys feel great in your hands. Often I've worked in games where we create characters and we don't really see them in 3D physical form until we've made a toy. And by then the design is kind of sealed. So I wanted to nail that down early and making sure it's something like a kid wants to pick up and play with.
So you're thinking of like just in general the 360 aspect of how the game will feel, not only as a game, but also if kids want to play it, and then probably animation and like just different mediums. Is that? I guess I'm making assumptions right now.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking more like the toy element.
Okay,
right? So I've worked on games where we've designed the characters and mostly digitally, and then when we get to the merch element, the designs fall flat. And there's just a huge amount of opportunity and affinity that people have for their characters, and we want to make sure that the toys and the merch will also reflect that.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about the Waffle House, because that's a very iconic cultural situation. You know what I'm saying? What other, you know what I mean? Like what other kind of cultural references as far as environments are you guys gonna have? Because no one's really doing that.
Well, we know, and if you think about this world that we've built, we've very much thought about how would these pets think? And if they're emulating their former masters, they would fight in the same areas that their former masters fight. So, Waffle House, Black Friday.
Black Friday at the Wolf Mart or something like that.
Exactly.
You know,
The county fair.
Yo, the county fair. The swap meet.
You know,
this is like, this is going super like, you know what I mean?
Pawchella. Well, you know, all
Pawchella?
you know, like all these different things, right?
Pawchella.
You know, outside the porta potties, you know, all these, like, where do people fight? You know, at Little League games.
Little League games.
So, but the thing is, this is kind of an extraction.
Paul Warner.
Exactly. It's an extraction of where would people fight.
Well, essentially, if AI engulfed all of World Star, where would it tell you
World-
to fight?
That is fantastic.
La même vidéo depuis tout à l'heure. Zéro
That
effort.
is so amazing. I want to see like, I know you don't have it in here, but the bystanders. For
the
people who don't have the
bystanders, yeah.
dope, like,
Yeah,
mechs, like.
We are actually, one of the things my grandson keeps asking for is he wants us to throw people through the window and then they have the people on the other side of the window throw them back in. So,
That is so
and I'm like, well,
good.
that's Ultimate Waffle House, so
Ultimate
that's definitely
Waffle,
going.
I'm getting destroyed.
Yeah. So we're looking into, like, a lot of this is, there's so much to be explored, right? And there's so many, you know, callbacks and references that we want to, like, pull into the game itself. And we can build
Bon,
into
ils étaient
this.
très bons, mes ramen, non?
What other
Ça a pas duré assez longtemps pour refaire.
gonna be
Ouais, non, garde pour demain.
Yeah, we've actually done some really great explorations on our character lineup, kind of exploring different fighter styles with just like an amazing concept artist named Connie Kang. She, one of her books is called Metamorphia, and she kind of focuses on like this really great translation of animals into human, and so we wanted to kind of play on like what would a house pet look like, and the likeness between a pet and their owner. And so we're kind of playing around with birds.
Oh, nice.
You know, anything you consider house pet. Turtles, cats, of course. You gotta have a cat and a dog. Rats, even. We're even looking into like
Rats.
how you get like a rat or a gerbil, maybe.
Gerbils, yeah, you know.
Yeah, your typical house pet.
That's super cool. So what do you like? How far are you into? I know you guys are pretty early on. How far are you into development?
J'aime vraiment qu'il y ait la vidéo qui tourne en boucle.
This is probably
Oh,
5%, if that.
Y a rien
We are
qui
at
va,
the beginning of
vraiment.
our journey, and one of the things that's been really great about this is that this is just even the start of our visual look, right? And there's still a lot of look development to go on. There's still a lot of mechanics to integrate. There's a lot of different things that I want to try and get into the game. I want to try and push this so that the game is very approachable for intergenerational play, so you can play with your kids. But I very much think of this as like, play with your kids, put your kids to bed, play with your friends, right? And when you're playing with your friends, you want a little bit more depth. And I want to put a lot more emergent or discoverable mechanics that can be in here to kind of push the play space of it. You know, you have games like Power Stone where whenever you get knocked down, you only lose one power cell. I'm thinking, what if we added a little bit more skill into it, where if you throw an object and it's kind of not targeted or automatically thrown at the person, but you're leading the person and you hit them at a particular distance, it might drop 2 power cells as opposed to 1, right? Trying to, you know, find ways to add a little bit more nuanced play so that you can discover new tactics to outplay your opponents.
That's interesting. Like, I remember, you know, I'm a big fan of Power Stone 2. Power Stone 2 felt less of a fighter because the worlds were everything was moving and that kind of thing. But it'd be interesting to see what you guys do with the environments, even extending and that kind of thing. So that's awesome.
One of the best things I think about Power Stone 1 or that sort of thing is we want to make sure that the game is focused on defeating the other team and working together with your partner to make that happen, right? The character, the arena itself is a character, and we want to make sure that the arena kind of shines as well. Being able to kind of expand the play space, think of like being able to knock people through walls, as we talked about earlier, through the window, and then be able to fight in a parking lot, right? So there's a lot of places to take this game and to explore different mechanics and different events.
Yeah, we really want to make sure the environment feels dynamic and that you can throw a character in front of a moving subway train, for example, time a hazard. So we're kind of really looking at making the arena a character all its own, and that it adds a level of randomness that makes every match fun.
Yeah, and the pets aren't gonna get hurt.
Of course, that's why they're in the box.
Okay,
that's not your pet.
Yeah, because I was about to say, you know what I mean? You're throwing it in front of a Subway, you can't.
No. You can't. You can pet the pet mechs, but they're bots.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So where can we find out more about Carrier Cuties, Cornerstone?
You can find our Steam page, Carrier Cuties, Pets and Mechs, but we also have a site that you can go to. It's really easy, Seastone Int Studio, start page, and you'll be able to look out, find more about our Discord and be able to join, be able to wish list and even see more updates that are coming.
You could follow us on socials at Seastone Studio.
Seastone Int Studio.
Seastone Int. I was like, you hear me? I hesitated. Seastone.
Seastone Int Studio, and that's on all platforms.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming through and allowing us to play your game, and congrats on everything. I mean, jumping in feet first to make a game in a studio is not easy.
Thank you for having us.
It is not for the weak.
No, not at all. All right. On to the next segment, too. This was awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
C'est fini?
Bonjour.
Ah, c'est bon. Il y a encore des jeux. Go North. Je déteste. Il manque 15 jeux en 10 secondes. Je les déteste.
Alors que les jeux ont l'air cool, quoi.
Ouais. C'est officiel, je déteste.
Il y a des jeux cool, il n'y a pas de jolis trailers, on se tape des mashups.
Oh, petit cochon. On a même plus les titres maintenant. C'est de pire en pire.
Excited for all of them, but what was your favorite?
I think my standout would have to be Jay and Silent Bob. I mean, I'm a longtime Jay and Silent Bob fan, so just that nostalgia alone was enough to get me pumped up and excited, for sure.
Valid.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to give a big shout out to all of our devs today, Jesse, Steve-O, and the entire Cornerstone team. Be sure to put a lot of those games, most of those games,
Bon, allez,
on
faut
your
quitter là.
wishlist while you can,
Dépêchez-vous.
and we are going to toss it over back to Justin.
Thank you, Curtis and Lori, for hosting the show. Great to see you guys, and loved those interviews. Love the devs and all the so good. Thank you all for tuning in, and the developers who are participating in these showcases and in this one in particular. Make sure to follow the developers on their socials, wishlist, buy, and play their demos. If you are interested in helping to fund some of those projects that you saw on the show, you could donate to the
Donc ça
XP
fait
Fund,
3 x 3,
and
9,
connect with us if you're interested in additional investment
10 jeux
We have to give it up to our partners.
en 1h30.
Aurora Broadcasting for
C'est un record. Encore moins la prochaine fois.
Summer Game Fest. Thanks for including us again. Twitch, IGN, GameSpot, and Steam. Make sure to catch all of the other awesome showcases happening this week. There's so many of them. The Latin America Game Showcase, Women-Led Games, Southeast Asia Game Showcase, Frosty Games Fest, Wholesome Direct, Story Rich, Planet Play, India Game Showcase, Day of the Devs, and more. My head's about to pop. Again, I am Justin Woodward, co-founder of Black Voice of Gaming and the Experience Studios platform. See you guys soon, and peace.
Bon, et ben voilà, ce Black Voice, c'est la fin de ce Black Voice in Gaming, ce tunnel vision de l'enfer. Je pense que personne n'arrivera jusqu'ici, mais bon, pour ceux qui seront arrivés jusqu'ici, merci d'avoir suivi. On se retrouve très vite pour la suite des aventures des conférences. Bye tout le monde.